Let's get started. Welcome to the stream. Tonight's stream will be about what is parking. This technique in particular is mostly geared towards full coverage pieces, though you can use it for non-full coverage. I don't use it for my non-full coverage pieces, but some of the techniques can be applied. First, I'm going to go over some things in Pattern Keeper, some settings that are particularly important for making parking a more enjoyable experience. We'll call it enjoyable. Some people just hate parking, and that's fine. It may not be your thing. That's fine. But it is helpful for making confetti a little bit less of a nightmare. So if you do full coverage pieces like Heaven and Earth Designs, like a Tilton Crafts, like a Gecko Rouge, it'll help make that a little easier. So let's get into BlueStacks. So this is BlueStacks running in the Android emulator. This is Pattern Keeper running in BlueStacks, which is an Android emulator. I have a pattern pulled up. This is the pattern I'll be working on. But what we mainly want to talk about is settings. So one thing is to make sure you have your settings, like your search color and your parking color, in a color you like, because you're going to be looking at it a lot, particularly if you're doing a full coverage piece. The most important thing for the way that I do parking is the diagonal lines. So mine go from lower left to upper right. This is just how I read the pattern. It's how I do my stitching. You can set it from upper left to lower right if that works for you. I do spaces of 10 because, again, this is me following the grid in the pattern. Another thing you can do is set your shortcuts. So if you double tap, you will park. I park in the lower left corner. And that is how I set my settings. This is both for tablets and for using it in a BlueStacks environment. And then I just make it like this because I like purple. I don't know, but I like using it. Using translucent highlights will make it so it's a little bit easier to see your highlighting. But those are mostly the things you need to be concerned about with your BlueStacks and your Pattern Keeper settings. All right, let's get started. I'm going to explain on screen a little bit what parking is, and then we'll move on to an actual physical demonstration of it. So parking is a method to help you get through confetti without having to constantly put your needle in, anchor it, do your stitches, and then put it out, take it out again. It's basically a way to save time in that regard. Some people think it doesn't save time because you have to rethread, you have to change needles or whatever. The way that I do parking is I do parking on the diagonal. So that's why I have these lines. There are reasons. You can technically do parking any way you want. You can do parking in a 10 by 10. You can do in a 10 by 10 square. You can do parking in rows if that's what floats your boat. I do it on the diagonal, and the reason I do it on the diagonal is because when you are doing full coverage stitching, there is a chance for what they call page lines to show up. So essentially, they are changes in tension, possibly where you picked up or left off with your stitching. This is also a tension issue, obviously, but if you are doing it on the diagonal, you are less likely to get these page lines. So when you are doing a massive project like a Heaven and Earth Design or a Tilton's Crafts, you do not want to end up with these huge page lines in your piece because it kind of ruins, the fact that you just spent however many years working on this piece. So the idea with parking is that for me, you work in these triangles. So you'll see the first triangle starts with 10 stitches, goes down to 1. Again, starts with 10 stitches, stays with 10 stitches, and then in this triangle, it goes down to 1. So what you do is you essentially pick a color. In this case, we'll be picking this color. There's a lot of it. This pattern is a mini Bonded in the Rain by Leonard Asimov, I think. I can't remember his name. Probably should look that up. I can look it up now, actually. Bonnet in the Rain. Afromov. I was close. Leonid Afromov. There's a lot of 939, which is this blocky color. So that is the color I'm going to start with when we do our physical demonstration. So what I would do is I would pick this color and I would start here with this stitch. This is where I would anchor my thread. I'd go across, do all those stitches, come over here, do all these stitches, down here, do all these stitches, this, all the way down until I run out, which is around here. Then I look for a place that's the closest, it's my next closest 939 block, which is right here. That is where I would end up parking my thread. Sorry, wrong tool. So I'd park right there. Then I'd go up, pick the next color. So it's this color here. This is 823. So I'd do this one and I'd do this one. And I'd go down and see, oh, there are no more in this triangle. So then I'd look and be like, okay, I need to park the closest one here. Conveniently, it's literally right next to it again. Double click, park it, we're good. Then we go on to the next color. Next color is this, which is 820. Again, there are not many of these in this block. So what I do is I stitch this one, I stitch this one, and then I park here. The last color in this block, I believe, is this one, which is 310. So I'll go through, I'll stitchy, and look and be like, okay, there are no 310 stitches within the next 10 blocks. So we look over and we see, okay, the next one is actually probably about 12 away. So what we would end up doing there is we would actually end our thread, and I'll show you how to do that. But that's just sort of a not practical demonstration, a theoretical demonstration of how parking works. So let's clear all of our parking. And now we can actually get into the physical demonstration. So it's going to take a minute to center. So this is my fabric. I am working on 25 count Lugana. I can't say words. Lugana, and it's actually pre-gridded. When it comes to parking, and when it comes to large pieces, like a Heaven and Earth design, I only use pre-gridded. I am not brave enough to try and do it without pre-gridded fabric. You'll see this needle minder is actually upside down. That's to mark where I should start because I couldn't find my fabric marker. So it's my little trick to mark my spot. So now that we're actually starting, I can move this here. You'll see I have several needle minders all lined up. This is for demonstration purposes, but it is also for practical purposes. When I am working on a large amount of parking, I will actually have several needle minders on one project to make my life easier. Because if I don't, threads get messed up because I use a different needle. I usually keep about 5 needles going for each project. And this is because I don't like rethreading if I don't have to. So let's get started. Let me make sure I have my needle up so you can see the pattern. Let me actually move my pattern keeper and let's scroll out a little bit so you can actually see. There you go. Now you can actually see sort of like the 2 columns. So the way I'm going to do this is you'll see on, are you going to focus? No, you're not going to focus. Yes, you are. No, you're not. Okay. So you'll see that these actually have, the pre-gridded fabric has the lines, like I said. I usually start on the inside of the line. So for me, I'm actually going to anchor this via the back. Just pull my thread through and then make sure that this this part catches the next part. So you won't be able to see what I'm doing immediately because I need to catch my thread. And now my cat Morgan has come to help me. You'll forgive me, cats. There's nothing I can do about them. They have minds of their own. Okay, so I have anchored my thread. So we, right now, according to Pattern Keeper, are right here. I'll highlight it. That's where we're starting. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go across. And we're going to stitch 10 stitches. Are there any questions so far as I'm working? Since you all know how to do crosses, you don't really need a tutorial on how to do crosses. Like I said, for parking, there's nothing saying you have to do it in a diagonal. I do it in a diagonal because, like I said, I want to avoid those page marks. And the reason I have this so zoomed in is so you can actually see like my stitches and you can see what I'm doing, because it turns out 25 count fabric is very small. Who knew? So we have 3 stitches done. Four. 5. Oops, got caught on my llama. Don't get caught on my llama. Sorry. 5. I got a knot. Now I get to watch me fix a knot live on stream. Woo! So I am doing 1/1. I do not like 2/1 on 25 count. It feels way, way, way too bulky to me. I tried it originally. What did you just do? There we go. I tried 2/1 when I first started my first Heaven and Earth designs, and oof, it was not a pretty experience for me. Some people love it. I can't do it. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7. Oop, I went off camera. 7. T-Rex, why you hurting me this way? There we go. T-Rex, come on, stop. My needle minders are not playing nice with me. This is stitch 9. Oh, sorry, my cat just kicked my keyboard. He wants to help. He likes to help. Hildy is bestest helper. Those of you who are in the cross stitch chat Discord know all about Hildy. He is my cat that has spidey senses when it comes to cross stitch. Dude, you're killing me, Hildy. Hold, please. Please move your back foot off my keyboard. I apologize. Back to the show. And this should be number 10. One thing with parking, yes, he is very, very quote-unquote helpful. He's not even attacking the string. He's just interested in my keyboard because it's nice and toasty next to my monitors. All right, so you'll see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 stitches. One thing with parking is I tend to be a bit of a I am an over marker because otherwise I lose count and I lose track. And if I lose count and I lose track, bad things happen. So now that we're there, we're going to go back the next way. So I need to go 3 over. So I skip this stitch, skip this stitch, skip this stitch. And I start here. And we have a knot on the back. Lovely, lovely, lovely. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong, right? There we go. Got it all fixed. So now we're going back. This is really normal stitching. You're not seeing anything particularly fancy or parking related. This is just me showing how I do my parking. And how I will go through stitching a full coverage piece to save myself headaches and like. Are there any questions so far? Yeah, cross stitch problems, truth. Is it really a cross stitch stream though if you don't get a knot in your thread? Like, I'm just saying, it can't really. It can't be a true cross-stitch stream if you don't get a tangle or a knot or the thread slips off your needle or you forget how to count or... I'm also getting used to like stitching on a camera because, well, normally I don't stitch on a camera. And I dropped my needle. Good job. It's all actually a recording. I made sure to get someone that was really good at faking it. Dude, come on. What are you doing? Oh, that would be it. Like I said, tangles. And we all know how bad dark threads are for like just getting horribly tangled because of the dyeing process. Because we all know how bad 310 tangles. 310 is a monster. $9.39 isn't much better. Oof, working in 310, you have my deepest sympathies because none of my patterns right now have been using 310, so I guess I'm like lucky in that regard, but I'm going to cut a shorter length next time. I cut it my normal length for when I'm doing 2 over. You're currently untangling 310. Well, at least we're all in the same boat. So we got another row of that done. So this one actually will match up exactly with the previous one. One thing that's really important when you're doing full coverage pieces, and this I had to learn the hard way, is that it's actually really important to watch your tension. Now this is more important when you're doing something like 2 over, because obviously if you're doing 2 over, Sorry, my needles decided to fall off my needle minders. If you're doing 2 over, you're gonna have a lot more pull on your thread, on your fabric. But watching your tension is kind of important when you're doing full coverage, because otherwise that will also create those lines that we're trying to avoid. Jeebus 939, cut me a break. It's a good thing this is just a demonstration piece, because otherwise this thing would be going in the timeout corner. We all have a timeout corner for our pieces, right? Mine is a bin. It goes and sits in the bin and thinks about what it's done. Yeah, you're not one of those chronic starters like the rest of us in the server. I am a chronic starter. Hello, my name is Kamisi and I am a chronic cross-stitch project starter. I've been at this for 1 year and I currently have, I don't even know how many works in progress. Too many. There we go. Alright, last stitch in this row. Alright, so we'll mark off another row in the pattern. Hit OK. And then we go down again, and this is where you can start seeing yeah. No, I can imagine your yarn work in progress pile is probably considerably larger than mine, considering I just picked up crochet and I haven't done knitting in a very long time. Mostly because we ended up moving from Ohio to Georgia, so all of like my impetus for like stitching like scarves and hats and stuff kind of went out the freaking window. It turns out you don't really need a heavy wool hat or scarf when you live in Georgia. Oof, yeah, I can only imagine what your stash looks like. I have enough yarn for 1 scarf and the blanket I'm crocheting that I've been showing off. That's all I got. All right. Okay, that's another one done. So for the rest of this one, it's literally doing the edge of the diagonal, which is nice because it means I don't have to count. I like not counting because I'm not very good at counting. Yet I'd keep doing all these crafts that involve counting. Figure that one out. Counting is hard. I don't recommend it. I am off camera again. I am so sorry. I need to get used to this. It would be a little easier if I was zoomed out, but I'm not, so. Alright, we are almost done with this color, and I can show you what the heck parking means. Isn't that nice? one more. One of the things that tends to drive people crazy about parking is they don't like all the threads poking through the front of their piece. You kind of get used to it. They also make these round bobbin things for, I think they're for beading, but they're round and you can use them to kind of hold all of your threads together. I can post a picture about it later in the Discord chat. Anyway, so we've completely finished doing the 939s along this diagonal in Pattern Keeper. So now that I've selected way too many stitches, we will mark those off. So now that we need to do that, we need to park. Well, conveniently, there's a stitch of 939 right next to our current stitch. So here's our current stitch. So we just push it through the lower left-hand corner, because that's how I stitch. I stitch from lower left to upper right, and then from lower right to the upper left, and then pull it through. And you leave it alone. For this, we will mark it. No, I don't want to do that. There we go. We will frog that. And we'll double click that. And now it has marked it as a parked thread. And you can see, pull it up close, you can see it is down in the lower left hand corner of the next stitch from the one I just completed. All right, so our next color is colors 823. So 823 is a very, very, very dark blue, which you can't really tell the difference between 823 and 939, but that's fine. So we'll put it up here. And again, I'm going to flip my work away because I'm not a nifty stitcher who can actually like capture my thread without seeing it. I've only been doing this for a year, so I think the fact that I do as much as I do is, you know, A+. All right, it is captured. So now we are going to stitch into that stitch. Boop. And we will unhighlight it so we can actually see. So that one is completed. And you'll see we have 2 more stitches in these rows. And then we will go down to, is it this one? No. I can't count, forgive me people. I'm like, how many rows away is this stitch? So we just did a stitch in this row, we're skipping this one, and then we're down here. So I really need to have someone like warn me when I go off screen. All right. And we have completed that stitch, and that is actually all of that stitch, all of that color that's in this diagonal. So conveniently, again, right next to this stitch is another stitch of this color. So we pull through, and then we are going to mark this as parked. So now you can see we have 2 parked threads. The next color is, I want to say it is 820, but I could be wrong. I wasn't wrong. That's nice. All right. So 820 is actually a bright blue. So this will be a little bit easier to see the difference. So you can see it's a bright blue compared to everything else. So the first stitch of this is actually in the second diagonal, the second row of the diagonal. Pull through. I have to flip it again because I'm not nifty. Forgive the random bouts of darkness. My craft lamp is right next to me because my office is poorly lit. So, pull through. We have anchored our thread. And we have our first stitch of 820, which you can kind of see right there. It's bright blue compared to not as bright blue. Then the next stitch for this color is right here. It got caught on my llama. I'm currently interfering with my own light, so that's fun. All right, another stitch of 820 in, and you'll see that that's actually the last stitch of 820 for this row. And once again, conveniently, it is right next to it. So we pull through, and then we mark it as parked. So this one and this one are complete, and we mark that as parked. The last color in this diagonal is 310. Pray for me that it won't tangle too badly, but it is 310, so who knows. Let me get this a little neater for myself. I just de-threaded my needle, didn't I? No, I didn't. It's gonna be one of those nights, ladies and gents, and non-binary friends. Alright, you are parked, you are not. Ah, I see what happened. Let's give this another go. And not pull it all the way through this time. Forgive the blank screen for a moment. There we go. The way that I usually handle the so as you get more threads running loose on the front of the pattern, how do you keep from spacing out and stitching over the loose threads? Usually what I end up doing is I end up bunching them together in a bobbin and pulling them to the side, and if I need to, what I'll do is I'll pull one free so I can stitch around it, if that makes sense. 310, you were cursing me. Why? All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna get this thing working, so help me somebody. But yeah, I'll like I use the round bobbins like I was saying before. And what I'll do is I'll actually split them into separate bobbins if I think it's going to be an issue. I don't actually know if I have a round bobbin near me. Because, like I said, I just redid like my whole computer and my office and everything else. So everything's a little bit chaotic right now. And I'm also going through my craft room. But yeah, what I'll end up doing is I'll actually usually split them into upper and lower bobbins, like past a certain point in the diagonal, and I'll split it to its own bobbin. That way I don't have to think about whether I'm going to end up accidentally stitching over the thread. So yeah, I apologize for no music in the beginning. Like I said, I just redid my computer, so some of my settings were all like wonky, and I didn't realize that it wasn't set to my my default speakers weren't set to the right setting. That was disappointing, because the music was actually really good. But you got to hear the tail end of it. Llama, stop. Alright, so we have finished. Llama, you're about to go in timeout. My llama needle minder keeps catching my threads. Alright. So, that row is done. The reason I'm actually stitching this whole diagonal is to show you how I would end a thread if there wasn't. The furthest I'm willing to travel when I'm doing these pieces is 10 stitches. That is the furthest I will go for parking. It is the furthest I will go for anything. If it is more than 10 stitches, I end the thread. This is mostly to keep things from getting horribly tangled, because if you've ever seen the back of a Heaven and Earth Designs piece or any kind of full coverage, it's already a bit of a chaotic mess. So I don't want to add massive trails of floss to the mess. It's also just better for your tension overall to not travel more than 10. I mean, you do you. If you want to travel more than 10, go for it. If you want to lose your thread and your needle and thread, go for it. But these are my handy tips, and my handy tip includes not traveling more than 10, particularly on fabric this small of a count, because there is a real danger when you're doing very, very small count fabric to end up distorting your fabric because your tension, you're pulling too hard on it. All right, that's another row finished. Did that kind of answer your question, KDS? I know I probably babbled a little bit and it might not have made sense. Actually, Alex, behind me there's a Ziploc bag full of stitchy stuff. There should be round bobbins in them. Could you get me one out, please? It's inside the bin of wonder and shame. Have you found the bin of wonder and shame? I'm asking my husband to be, Snowlass says hi. That is not the right bobbin. It's a round one.
Did not know there was more than one.
There is more than one. Welcome to danger.
This.
Hold 1 second. Yes. All right, so this is what I was talking about. This is the kind of round bobbin I will use when I am long-term parking threads. They flip closed. Oh, he actually cross stitches. My husband does know how to cross stitch. I taught him during, was it the beginning of the pandemic I taught you? Mm-hmm. Beginning of the pandemic I taught him. So these are what I use, and what I'll do is I'll show you. Let me pull all of my stuff off of needles and not stab myself, because not stabbing myself is good. Interlude from stitching. I'll pull this through so that way my threads don't get tangled. Is that good? That's good. All right. So you have all this excess thread. And you will continue to have all of this excess thread as you stitch. It gets worse. But what I do is I actually get one of these and I will coil it around. There. Snap it closed, and then it just dangles off my project like that. And like I said, as my diagonals get bigger, I will actually use multiple of these and split them into like top, middle, end, or top, middle, middle end, or however many I need. That way I can see where they're oriented, where they're coming from, and I can also make sure that my current working thread does not get all messy. I can link them in the Cross Stitch Chat Discord if you guys are interested after this. And I'll include it in the YouTube description when this goes up on YouTube. All right, so back to stitching. We're almost done, which is nice. Because the less I have to work with 310, the happier I am. Even though it is probably like the most commonly included thread in any cross stitch pattern. Like I can't think of a more like frequently used thread other than maybe Blanc, but even then I think 310 is used more often than Blanc. All right, another row done. One more row done. So you'll see we have 2 rows left. Goody goody, and we have 1 more row left. Come on, you can do it. Of course it's the last stitch, so it's not letting me find the hole, right? All right, last stitch of this diagonal. So you'll see this is a completed diagonal. That is from 10 to 1, 1 diagonal completely finished. But you'll notice if we do, let me just change something real fast. Let's not do translucent highlights. All right, so this is essentially what it mimics your colors. If you're familiar with Pattern Keeper, if you're not, you can actually look it up on my YouTube or in my my Twitch VODs. It mimics the colors of the pattern, not entirely accurately, but accurately enough. So you'll notice if we select the 310, there are no stitches within 100 miles of us, of our 310. So what we'll actually end up doing is we'll end up ending this thread. What I do is I actually go over at least an entire diagonal. So I'll actually count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is where my diagonal would be. So I'll actually go 2 stitches further than that. 1, 2. Pull my thread through the front. Do that. And then you snip it. What will end up happening is that while you're stitching down this diagonal, you'll stitch over that thread. I try and keep my ending threads equal with where basically the row of the fabric stitches where the stitch ended. And that way I know when it has been stitched over. Because this is white fabric, you can kind of see it because it's a dark thread through white fabric. But that is how you end a thread when you are doing parking. I try to keep about, it's probably about 3/4 of an inch of excess thread on this side of the fabric, because that way, if I need to, I can grab it and pull it taut. So that is essentially parking. Are there questions? Is there confusion? You end the thread on the front in order, well, number one, to avoid bulkiness. Number two, it makes sure that it doesn't get lost and tangled in the mess of the back. So this way you make sure you end up stitching over it rather than it just getting lost in the void somewhere, and not getting stitched over and not getting anchored, because if it doesn't get anchored, we all know what happens. The thread slips out, panic ensues, it's not good. So yeah, it's just to basically ensure, all right, I know where this thread is. If I need to, I can flip it over, I can flip my work and make sure that it's getting caught in the process of me stitching this row. I stitch diagonals, no. Basically the reason I don't stitch by page is because I am using Pattern Keeper, so knowing where the pages start and stop gets a little bit fuzzy. I basically will stitch a diagonal until I have to move my frame, if that makes sense. So like normally I don't stitch on something this small. Like this is a, I want to say this is like a 6x6 Q-snap. I don't usually stitch on something this small. Normally I'm on a considerably larger piece. But I will basically stitch until I can't go any further, and that's where I'll stop my diagonal. I usually try to do it in, like, again, the 10 by 10s. Like I try to make sure I complete a 10 by 10, or like say we were doing this one and I stitched this all the way down and I hit here and I was running out of frame space, I would probably just pick a row to end at and pick up again later on. It is one of the benefits of parking is that you don't have to think too hard about, again, of using the pre-gridded fabric, is you don't have to think too hard of where you left off, and Pattern Keeper because it lets you actually see where you last did it. That's sort of what I do. Yeah, I don't know. Did that answer your question? Once I have stitched over it in the previous diagonal, I do cut it. Yeah. So like once I've completed this diagonal here, I will go ahead and snip this thread, and that way I don't have to think about it. Because otherwise chaos, like it'll get messy very, very quickly because you have so many different colors, and especially if you're doing an Avramoff pattern, like there's a lot of colors. There's a lot of colors, and I would not want to try and stitch over like an orange over like 310 or 939 or whatever. Like it just would not end up working out well. Now you can see it. There we go. You can kind of see the blue, the whole 2 stitches of it. I mean, technically the 939 is also blue, but it looks like black. Other questions? Yeah, no, definitely. Weird color coverage is a concern, but since the way that I do it, you're always cutting off your tail threads, it's not as much of an issue. Other question? Oh, this is not a new work in progress, no. This will be going back in the bin, and it'll get worked on at some other point. I do not have the attention span for working on a Heaven and Earth Designs project right now. I'll be doing my nice little white rabbit for the Cross Stitch Discord January challenge. My white rabbit in a teacup. That's what I'll be doing. Because that does not require tons of attention. Any other questions before we end the stream? Either about Pattern Keeper or about stitching, parking? Parking, that's the word, not stitching, parking. Of course, I love doing tutorials for you guys, so if there's anything else you guys want to know about or see or have me demonstrate, just let me know in the Discord. For those of you who are not in the Discord, we are listed on Discord. So if you are interested in finding our little community of enablers, we are listed on Discord. So if there are no more questions, I want to thank you all for coming out. And if there are further questions, feel free to either message me on now I'm going to say Discord, or leave me a comment on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you have an amazing beginning of your year, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.